Hi everyone, it's Brandon and Carrie. We're back to give you all an update from the last video that we posted a couple weeks ago. And we're happy to be back to keep you all informed of what's been happening with us. And so we'll go ahead and get started. So the last time that we spoke with you, we were in the hospital. It had been probably the lowest point that I had come to since I began the standard of care treatment with chemo and radiation, which was surprising to me because I had been off of the chemo and radiation for what was it, from the end of March until the beginning of May. So yeah, it was a good 6 weeks or so. And initially I thought that I might have to deal with a few days afterward or a week, be on the treatment, and then I should start feeling better, and it just didn't happen. And in fact, it just seemed to be getting worse. And we were frustrated because we didn't understand why. I was frustrated because I was beginning to wonder if that was my new normal, my new normal life, uh, which wasn't pleasant. Was pretty much, if you want to call it, bedridden, or just kind of on the couch all the time. Had no energy. Wasn't able to interact with my family very much, and so I guess by God's grace, it got to a point where I was not keeping any food down, which was the first time that had happened to me. I had dealt with issues of appetite and not really being able to eat, but now, before this last time that I went to the hospital, I wasn't able to keep any food down. So that's what precipitated the trip to the hospital. The doctors decided to go ahead and give me an increased dose of the steroid, and truly within about 24 hours, I felt a world of difference. Uh, since I was in the hospital, ended up being there 4 days, I think, Saturday through Tuesday. They decided to go ahead. The doctors decided to go ahead and do the MRI, which previously I had an MRI in mid-April, but this time they wanted to get it with the contrast dye. The previous time they did not do it with the contrast dye because the last time that I had a scan with contrast, that's what caused the kidney issues with the elevated creatinine levels. So the doctors were concerned about that, but they took some extra precautions this time. They made sure that I was well hydrated. Uh, the MRI went smoothly. In fact, not only did I not have a recurrence of the increased creatinine levels, my levels actually dropped slightly from the day that I had the scan until the next day. So, and I'm happy to report that that issue seems to be totally gone. My creatinine levels are back almost to the original baseline uh, where they were when before this all began. So that was good news. So MRI went well. We had the follow-up consultation with Dr. Mantica, who is the neuro-oncologist and has been the lead oncologist since I began this journey. And so she went over the results with that, and I think generally they're positive. So as mentioned before, I did have increased swelling in my brain, which we've determined is more than likely the culprit of all the symptoms I was feeling. With the increased dose of steroid, it's helping that swelling to subside. And I'm still on that steroid, so that's something that hopefully I can begin to taper off of, but without dealing with all of the side effects that I was dealing with before. But so right now, the status of my brain cancer is considered to be stable. Uh, the MRI showed the increased swelling, which the doctors are calling pseudo progression, meaning that it does appear that it could be a progression of a tumor or tumors, but they have no reason at this point to believe that it actually is. Um, and the specifics of that, I'm not fully uh, aware of, but other than to say that the doctors said with the type of tumor that I had, and there's a mutation that I had, IDH1.
As opposed to IDH1. Yeah.
Okay. The IDH1 mutation is actually a positive thing for me, and it would be very unlikely, given that this is only within a few months of the surgery, that I would have another tumor at this point. Not impossible, but very unlikely. So we're just in a monitoring phase right now. I do have another MRI scheduled for mid-July, and at that point we will uh, hopefully find that there's no new growth of tumors. But that's kind of where I am. So again, it's called my condition is stable at this point, and unless there's new tumor growth, that will be my condition.
I did want to say though that typically right now most people would start chemotherapy again for a whole year. Typically it's 5 days on, 23 days off. Brandon had different adverse reactions that most people, that it wasn't really typical for his age to have. Like the very low platelets and just the different things that he was feeling in his stomach and stuff, like that they were going to start off slow and then the next month bump him up to his regular dose, and then after that bump him up again. And Brandon we have decided to discontinue chemo, so he will not be doing chemotherapy treatments. So that's typically what someone would be doing right now.
Right, they call that maintenance.
Right.
But just in talking with the doctors, talking with Dr. Mantica, while that's not what she would recommend, she did understand our decision not to continue with that. And furthermore, she said to us that there really aren't terrific studies that show that maintenance protocol gives one a terrific chance of
extended life.
Yeah, of extended life and making sure that there's no regrowth. So she was pleased that I went through the initial 6 week, 42-day protocol, and hopefully that was aggressive enough to beat back the growth of any new tumors. From the beginning, and we shared this early on in our videos, we were told that the chemo is not a cure. For some types of cancers, the chemo and or radiation has a very high success rate. With brain cancer, it does not. It simply statistically gave me the best chance to have an extended life. So we decided to go with that from the beginning. And there were parts of it that seemed to go smoothly, and then there were parts of it that did not. And so, at this point, I still have brain cancer, but thankfully I haven't had a recurrence of tumor, and we're just going to leave it in God's hands. And we asked, is this a point where we can maybe look into some clinical trials or look into some other treatment options? And she said, really, that wouldn't be something to pursue unless there is new tumor formation. So again, we're just in the monitoring phase. We're praying, as many of you are out there, that by God's grace, that there won't be another tumor. Um, I suppose that statistically that's very unlikely, but it could be another tumor several years down the road. We don't know, but one of the elements that went into our decision was that right now, this is the best quality of life that I've enjoyed again since the beginning of January, and I'm going to make the most of it and take advantage of the time that I have with my family, and not worry about what's going to happen a few months, 6 months, a few years from now, if that all comes. So that's where we are. For those of you who are out there praying for us, we just pray again for God's mercy on this situation, that there would be no new tumors, and hopefully I can get back to having some semblance of a life, normalcy that had before all of this began in the beginning of January. I guess the next major hurdle for me, if we want to call it that, is I want to get my license back. So as long as I don't have another seizure, which God willing I won't, don't see that there would be any reason, because the seizure was caused by the tumor in the first place, that I should have my license back at the beginning of July, first week of July. And at that point, I'm hoping to go back to work. And so that would be nice. I feel that other than a couple small changes that happened from the surgery, the biggest one being my vision is just slightly affected. So reading can be challenging at times, but it's not too bad. I feel that I have full cognitive functioning, similar to what I had previously, so I feel that I can be productive and active in that capacity. So that's the update. I don't care if there's anything else that you wanted to share that we missed, or
I just want to say tomorrow's Trenton's birthday.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, so we're hoping to make a day of it. That's one thing I will say right now that I'm trying to soak up. It's obviously been very weird for me to not have to get up and go to work. I haven't had to do it since the beginning of January. I'm spending the days with my family, so I was hoping to have these days back in late March, early April, and they didn't come, but they're here now. So we're trying to make the most of the time that we have together. So we have a day trip planned tomorrow with Trenton's birthday. Yeah.
He's turning 5.
He's turning 5.
I wanted to add that in there.
That's good. It's good. I don't know that there's too much else. Just again, thank you. We continue to get cards and prayers, and we posted a video that was produced by a colleague of mine within the last couple of weeks, and we got a lot of nice feedback on that. That was Hank Bachman took the time to do that project for us, and if you can tell from the video, we're in sweaters. That was back in
March.
I think it was even February.
It was right when I broke my nose because I have a black eye in it.
Okay.
I had to make a note of that.
But anyway, so we got that out there. So that was very kind of Hank to put that together for us, and
it's very nicely done.
It was nicely done. So that's our update. Going forward, we're not sure how many of the updates that we'll do. We'll try to keep you all informed if anything new comes up along the way. But at this point, no news is good news, and
we'll update again whenever you get your next MRI in July.
In July,
unless something happens between now and July.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much.
Yeah, and hopefully that won't be the case. I can just taper off the steroid, which would be good. Because it's not good to be on the steroid long term, and it does affect my mood a little bit. It makes me a little bit agitated. It makes me super hungry, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Because I really haven't eaten well for a few months, but I gotta watch. Eat too much now. And I actually can enjoy foods. One real quick story, and I've shared this with a few people. So, I've always enjoyed spicy foods, and during the time, particularly towards the end of the radiation and then the weeks afterward, I had developed a complete aversion to anything with spice. I remember trying to eat a piece of pizza with pepperoni, and I couldn't handle that. Not only would it bother my mouth and my tongue, but it would also tingle in the back of my head. It was such an odd sensation. It was just totally unenjoyable. Since they put me on the steroid, I'm back to eating everything. We were at a party this weekend, and I had hot banana peppers. It didn't bother me a bit. It's bizarre. It's amazing how the human body works, and particularly the brain. Just a little bit of pressure on a particular area of my brain totally changed my sense of taste and the foods I could eat. Even the fact that at one point I couldn't stomach anything. Wasn't even I couldn't stomach anything, because actually that wasn't the issue. The issue was that I just couldn't mentally get over that. So thankful again to be able to do a lot of the things that I had been accustomed to do. So we will finish up with our Bible verse, as we have done throughout this journey. And tonight I didn't really have anything in particular that I wanted to share, so I want to share one of my favorite verses. This is Romans chapter 12, verse 2. I guess you can say that this loosely relates to our situation, because it does talk about the renewing of your mind, but it's not really the same as talking about your brain. This is your spiritual mind. So here's what it says. It says, "And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." So I guess the way that I can relate this, I'm thankful that I still have my mind. The part of the brain that the tumor affected, thankfully it did not impact that. We don't know where this is going to lead down the road, but I'm thankful to God that I still am able to think, and I'm still able to function and interact with my family and others out there. So that's it. We went a little bit long tonight, but wanted to give you all an update and continue to encourage you, and thank you for all the encouragement that you've given to us along the way. So once again, good night.